So the beginning of next year is 10 years anniversary since you've been released. Can you reflect back on your time on the outside?
10 years of freedom have been a rocket ride through every human emotion you can imagine. From getting out and being sick to going forward and finding out that everybody who was meant to be there to protect you and help you weren't. Finding out that I have to do it all on my own and struggle with it has been very difficult.
I read online you said you had no history when you were released. How did you find an identity, form an identity?
Patience and bonding with others. Because I had no history of the world, did I? I was like a newborn. It took me a long time to understand that relationships are precious, but they're not always right. Within 10 years, all prisoners who have served more than 20 years in solitary confinement try to commit suicide because they can't bond with society again. It's so hard to reestablish bonds and connect with people when your whole identity has been started off again. And that's why they do it. Survivor's guilt plays a heavy part in it too.
How did you feel when you realised that DNA could be an option for you to be redeemed in a way?
In 1988, when I found out about DNA testing, I believed I would be set free within a short period. I had no idea it was going to take 15 years. What I knew at that point, I was so ignorant of the reality that it wasn't about DNA. It was more about keeping the monster in prison.
The eyewitnesses who were manufactured by the police, how do you feel looking back at that?
It's shameful that if you look across the board, a lot of cases in which the evidence is questionable, they use jailhouse witnesses like this. And it's a common theme. And I feel like it's really shameful that they have to stoop to that type of level. A prisoner will say anything to get out of prison, won't he? How can they put so much trust in this?
On the flip side, you say that at times you miss it, you miss the experience. What positives, if any, have you taken from your experience?
I became a very good-hearted person in hell. And that's the hardest thing to do, because you're taught all day long hatred and hurt, hatred and hurt, hatred and hurt. And I was finally given an opportunity to see through that. And so the greatest gift I've given myself is knowing that I can be a good person if that's what I choose.
In relation to the Innocence Project, what are your views on journalists? Because journalists play a key part in that project.
Journalism students have done more to get people out of prison than law students. You would go to a scene and see it through the eyes of a journalist. You wouldn't go and look at it from the eyes of a lawyer. A lot of journalism is really grassroots efforts, isn't it? So I believe that journalism, in terms of helping this kind of issue, very positive.
So looking back on your story, I think anyone would struggle to write it as fiction. Regarding movies, potentially, is there anything in the pipeline?
I'd love to see this movie made with a downplaying. I don't want it to be all the crazy escape death row. I want it to be about someone like you, someone normally trying to assimilate all this information without it being blown up in guns and bombs and craziness.
Do you still feel angry?
No, I don't have any time for anger left.